Welcome back to the 16 Marketing Conclave, organized by IAMAI and powered by ZFi. Our final session is a panel discussion on challenges and opportunities for agencies in a dramatically changing marketing ecosystem. We welcome our moderator, Mr. Anand Goenka, Executive Director, The Indian Express, and Chairman, Digital Advertising Committee, IAMAI, followed by our esteemed panelists, Mr. Shashi Sinha, CEO, IPG Media Brands India, Mr. Ashish Basin, CEO, APAC and Chairman, India, Dentsu Agents Network, Mr. Vishnu Mohan, Chairman and CEO, Havas Group, and Mr. Sam Balsara, Chairman and Managing Director, Madison World. A very warm welcome to all of you. I would now request Mr. Goenka to take over.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome to the closing of the 16th annual IAMAI Marketing Conclave. And what an incredibly fruitful 2 days it's been. Couldn't have asked for a better way to close the conference and the conversation than with four incredible individuals and people who represent a large part of the entire advertising industry in India: Sam Balsara, Ashish Basin, Shashi Sinha, and Vishnu Mohan. It's going to be, it's as the last session. We have some time, but we're going to try to stick to under 40 minutes. We'll keep 10 minutes for Q&A from the audience. I think I'll just start by sharing, my takeaway from the 2 days is, hearing from the business leaders, specifically Harsh Mariwala and Nitin Paranjpe. One of the things that we kept, coming as advice to brands was to invest in finding a larger purpose, invest in finding a role in society. If you agree that this is a necessary step for brands, in what part of the journey do you think most Indian brands are, in India in this point in time? How far in this journey do you think Indian brands are? Shashi, if I can start with you.
Yeah, so it's a tough question. So you said Ashish or you said Shashi?
I said Shashi, but
tough question. Already says Shashi.
Sorry. Or
Shashi, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So like I was saying, because saying Indian brands is a large spectrum, but I'd only say that many are doing it. Some may not be leveraging it, evangelizing it in the right way. They may not be talking about it. They may not be. But I think the larger point is that that path they need to fundamentally believe in it. My concern is a lot of people are doing it for the sake of leveraging it and not really intrinsically believing it. And that consumers should are smart, they catch on, the ecosystem catches on. So I'll give an example from my kitty. I'm lucky and fortunate to work with Amul, who inherently are, that's the belief, that's the corporate sector. And they leverage it very well. I mean, if you see this pandemic, they leverage this whole thing of doing good for the society. So I think they are brands, but the only caution I build in that people should be part of the DNA, should be interesting for them. And then you leverage it. Shouldn't do it for the wrong reason, that just because it's a PR opportunity. Is where I come from.
Right. Ashish, you want to?
No, as always, I completely agree with what Shashi is saying. I think the consumer today is very smart and is very clearly able to find out who's doing it, just to gain brownie points, and who's doing it genuinely. Particularly the younger generation, I think is a very important and a valuable sort of area for them. I don't think you can fool the consumers. My only advice would be that if it is going to be a part of your DNA, if you're doing it with a genuine reason and a genuine intent, there's nothing better than this. But if you're doing this just to take advantage and pull wool over somebody's eyes, it's not a game that will last for long.
Mr. Balsara, how does the brand go around finding a genuine purpose? A larger genuine purpose?
I think it's becoming quite important in today's society, and especially with the younger people. I think my understanding is that younger people get attracted to a brand's cause, and when a brand takes up a cause, then older people, and I think brands have been quick to realize this. I think when it comes to larger social purpose, the key watch out is authenticity.
Yes.
I think this is the key word. And as my colleagues have already said, you know, if you do adopt a purpose, you better think it through 10 times before launching something because A, it has to be a long-term adoption and not something that you think of just for a campaign. I mean, whether it is gender equality or diversity or greening or natural or organic or whatever it is. I mean, better make sure that you can sustain that position for a long period of time and all your activities sort of, gear up to that one overall purpose. If you don't, then I think, as my colleagues have said, you come across as a sham and the consumer catches you out rather fast.
And Vishnu, if we are to follow this, sorry, were you saying more, Mr. Basara?
No, I'm fine.
Vishnu, if you, the brands that do kind of get this, and brands like Amul, Saffola, Mr. Mariwala was talking about, was so closely related to heart. Communication, it sounds like has never been more important.
I think personally, to go back a little bit, brands' way of connecting with consumers is largely through the products that they bring, right? So any mission or any adoption of purpose has also to be exemplified through the brands. So if you look at the concept of meaningfulness or engagement or doing good or profit or purpose, this is not today. It's been going on for quite some time.
Yes.
It's just, and the brands that have had this in their DNA have come out excellently on top during this period because it's always been there as part of their culture. This is what they have lived by, and the mission. So the brands that tried to actually take advantage of this COVID times and said, let me do something, and as everybody else has said, the authenticity lacked, and and the people can see it that this is just timely tactical stuff as against this thing. Yes, it is. I mean, and to go back to your second question about the need to elevate that in communication is important because we do a study on meaningful brands for many years, and we have actually demonstrated the fact that brands need to do this not just for the purpose of just feeling good or doing good or getting the empathy from the consumer. It actually translates into shareholder value. And we have tracked the brands that have been doing this kind of stuff with the actual stock market performance, and you can actually see that there is a positive correlation between this. So the whole concept of profit with purpose actually genuinely works.
Right. Now, one of the trends again that we kind of see in, as the increased spends in digital advertising happen, is that, often digital advertising is being sort of confused for performance marketing, leads generation. And that kind of prevents a investment in that long tail purpose building, long tail brand recall, that emotional connect. Um, is that a concern that you see happening in in the post COVID setup?
Firstly, I think what you're saying, Anand, is a legacy of the past. And I think we have gone past. Okay, we have gone past that phase where this whole concept of last click attribution, people have now understood the value of what branding means in digital and how that entire ecosystem works together. Whether it's brand, nothing, it doesn't work in a vacuum. Therefore, I don't believe for a moment that brands don't understand the need for branding in a digital age. And I actually genuinely see that this is only going to rise even more because in a post-COVID world, the brands need to and that share that you're talking about, which is reflecting in the growth of contribution coming from digital will get reflected in this. It is even with the respect of the fact that you're saying that there's going to be a larger e-commerce or stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily only will be derived from search on straight cut performance. That will derive because you're talking about filling up a funnel, okay, and that filling up a funnel before it goes down the funnel and actually coming from what you do from a branding activity.
Ashish, do you?
I would
Sorry, yes.
add to this. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Botha.
Yeah, I was saying I would add to this by saying that video today is already the largest segment within digital. So I think it's not that performance still rules the roost. Having said that, I think I would say that possibly, if you are looking at the entire funnel, then still preference at the top of the funnel from the largest category index, which is FMCG, would be television. I think digital will become the mainstay. I'm talking mainly of India.
Yes.
For example, digital, according to our estimates, already reached a share of 30% in one. But if I take FMCGs entirely as a category, which means, the spends of Lever, Colgate, Godrej, Marico, all of them put together, then they don't spend 30% of their total budget on digital. So to that extent, yes, digital is under leveraged and that is an opportunity. Having said that, I think for a number of reasons, television still rules the roost in those categories which believe in creating a brand pull and want top of the funnel awareness. FMCG uses digital more for its strength in interactive and communicate and involvement and stuff like that, where the opportunities in digital are much more than in television.
Right. So, Ashish, if I can come to you, one of the changes that's coming, we find that brands, whether even B2B brands, however they define their customer in post-COVID, they're all trying to invest in ways to have a direct relationship sort of with their customers. And do you see this trend sort of coming at the cost of that brand building? I'm coming back to that central question. Or do you think that it kind of goes hand in hand?
Look, my view is slightly different from what both Vishnu and Sam have said. It's a fact that video is rising very rapidly and we continue to do so, thanks largely to Tarangani lowering the data prices, increasing bandwidth, and all of those things with videos launch that we know of. So there's no denying that. But I think a very important factor to note is that a lot of people are now going to look for liquidity. Their businesses have been impacted in this period, and therefore performance marketing, at least for the short term,
Yes.
becomes significantly more important because if your tops are not moving, if cash is not coming in, your business is going to be starting to feel a crunch. And I think a lot of businesses are going to be in that field. And their first attempt is going to be like to liquidate the stocks, at least get my circulation of my money moving faster, and then I'll see brand building as it happens. Whether it's right or not, I don't know, but I think that's going to be the trend for a lot of Indian businesses, and that's something that we're going to see in the short run. Of course, in the long run, it makes a lot of sense to invest in brand building and so on. Also, this whole concept of funnel, I think after COVID is going to go away in the sense that it's become an hourglass. So from the funnel, you narrow it down and you come to the lowest point. But then after that, there is going to be CRM, there's going to be customer relationship building, there's going to be analyzing of data much more so that it's like a feed forward and a feedback cycle gets established. So I think we've got to stop thinking of it as a funnel and think of it more as a continuum of an hourglass, where your relationship with the customer actually continues beyond the sale. And if that is, then I think performance will continue to be an important part. No doubt that digital will start becoming more important, FMCGs and so on. But I think that will happen probably in 18 to 24 months because FMCGs all look for numbers. That's how they are trained. They look for reach because their products are mass. Roughly, if you look at it in India, television reaches about 700, 750 million people. Digital, I know IMAI gives us the number, but I would think reaches about 450 million people. I think in about 18 to 24 months, there's going to be an intersection of the graphs of reach between digital's reach and television's reach, and they'll start coming very close to each other, or
Yes.
probably even crossover. And when you look at markets which are ahead of us in digital, right, like South Korea, like China, etc., when that happens, that's like a inflection point, and that's where FMCGs jump in. To Sam's point on that, so we are probably 18 months, 24 months away from that point, but clearly that's the direction that we're heading in. But in the short and medium run, I think performance marketing will still continue to play quite an important role in India till the market stabilizes.
Yes. Shashi, so what impact does this have on the agency and the role that agencies play? If you agree with how Ashish sort of categorized it instead of a funnel into an hourglass, does that change a lot of how you guys operate?
So before I answer that, different perspective. I mean, I like Ashish, we agree with him, but at the same time, there's slightly different take. I will not make it a performance versus, display or brand building. It's not that to me. And it's linked to your other question of direct to consumer. So, what's happening in COVID, you must understand India is, for brands in most categories, the brand penetration is compared to, loose purchase in a lot of categories is low. So, and what has happened in COVID time, people are relying on brands which are well known, important. Now you have two rules to build trust. So in my mind, category after category, you see, trust becomes critical. You want to experiment because you want to play safe. You want to know what's happening. You have limited money. You don't want to go wrong in your purchase. And trust can be, as Ashish said, can be built two ways. You can build trust through brand building. You can ensure that you create a story. Or this is a question of purpose. I stand for something. As the purpose, the demand emphasizes, or I can say through repeat purchase. I buy something and I don't experience and it's still direct to consumer. So very difficult to figure out the two routes to the same end. Having said that, my surmise is that it probably will be hourglass. And needless to mention, the question you asked, definitely agencies have to evolve because we have created these buckets. These buckets will not exist. So the buckets are, there are teams within us who are brand building people, they're performance people, they're search people. They're absolutely separate verticals. Some agencies are only performance agencies. Some agencies only brands. Some within the same network have both with the separate teams. So I think this ability to figure out that what will work for which consumer, which brand, you have to interplay. For someone, it may be all about saying, listen, how do I build trust for my brand? It could be a repeat purchase. Over repeat purchase, trust will come. At the same time, I may turn around and say, listen, I still need to, I'm an unknown brand. I need to, or I'm a brand in a well-established brand, but in a category which is unknown, how do I build trust? So I think this interplay, if we don't do it together, is going to be very, very challenging for us. They're difficult people to find to work together.
So, I mean, actually, if I can ask Ashish this, that, and this is out of curiosity, you keep hearing the number of acquisitions that companies like yours do, and you're picking up a performance company here, you're picking up a brand, like different skill sets, you keep buying. Is that making it harder? Like, is that creating more buckets in the system, or how do you break these walls? Because it sounds like brands are wanting less walls.
Absolutely. And I think that's where our one P&L model is our winner. And I think that's the reason why we've managed to get the success that we have. So, if you go back 5 to 10 years, agencies didn't have significant digital skills. All agencies, none of the agencies really had it, right? There are two ways. I was a late entrant in the Indian market. People, Shashi's company and Sam and so on have been there. Some for 80 years, 90 years. I was coming in late. So I had to build these capabilities. Now, one way of doing it is that I could have taken a long time build it, and perhaps I would have got there, but it would have taken a much longer time. The other way of doing it was that I identified that digital is going to be a fast growth area. Most of our competitors were less focused on it at that period, that point in time. So we started acquiring these skills. But of course, the acquisition is a smaller part of the game. After that, how do you get them to work together under one P&L as one team and get those people whose companies you've bought to stay on and help build their brands well after their earnouts, etc. are over? I think that really requires that skill. And luckily, we were able to manage that brilliantly. And I don't think this process is ever going to end because agencies need to reinvent themselves. If we are going to continue to be 5 years from now, do exactly what we were doing 20, 30 years earlier, we're going to be out of business very, very fast. So, for example, there's this whole area of cloud. None of the agencies in India, very few agencies, have any significant capability of providing real services in cloud, while that's probably the fastest growing part of client spends and so on. So you have to keep watching what the trends are. You're not always going to be able to grow them organically. Where you can, you must, but there may be, it's not necessary that the best talent will only lie within 5 or 10 agency groups. There could be some very smart people who are lying outside of these agency groups, and we should always be looking at bringing in that fresh blood, new capabilities, and then working on how do you integrate them together. So I think it's a continuous process of doing that.
Yeah. Vishnu?
Yeah, on the same subject about acquisitions, yes, I mean, I totally echo what Ashish is saying that, yes, it's not about you have to do, you buy companies so clients need the holisticity, but also clients need capabilities, and it's impossible to have all the capabilities in house. So you have to get these companies in order to get the right capabilities, and then as Ashish says, and I totally echo the fact, the biggest challenge is about trying to integrate that back into what we call village, and what he said, one PNL. It will be all talking about the same language.
Yes.
That is what is truly required, and the ability to make sure that they get integrated into and absorb and are able to assimilate your culture, the agency's culture, and continue to exist within that environment post their earnouts and buyouts and work towards
Yes.
for the common company goal.
Yes.
That's the challenge. That's
No.
what we all.
But I guess what I wanted to ask you was the relevance. I mean, how does the agency stay relevant going forward? I mean, you see a lot of, everybody's kind of moving self-service. There's so much of tech that's kind of tech companies are sort of, and this is a question that's asked to media all the time. So
What is the biggest thing that anybody has seen in COVID? I mean, the one word was that what has COVID done? I mean, COVID has done the acceleration of digital transformation, right? So what you're saying is the biggest beneficiaries. So things that people were expecting to do 2 years from now, 24 months from now, 36 months from now, 12 months from now, they have started to do it now. The agency is no different. The agency is exactly the mirror of what companies are prepared to do, because agencies are enablers. Agencies are enablers or facilitators to these brands to execute what they need to do. Okay, so agencies have also to be fast track themselves. So what they were expecting in their plans to be able to do a bit later needs to be done now in terms of capabilities that become complementary with what the brands need, so as to be able to help them get to this digital acceleration or digital transformation that we need to do. And this is big, because many of the smaller or medium to smaller companies would actually physically get wiped out if they didn't assimilate or they didn't get onto this bandwagon fast enough. And this is what where I guess one of the biggest roles that agencies can play is to be able to equip ourselves with those talents much quicker, either through acquisitions or through organically investing in those talents, and to be ready for it so that we can have, and which is what we are actually currently already doing.
Mr. Balsara, you've seen everything. You haven't seen COVID, but you've seen everything. Um, is this that one big sort of moment, that black swan moment in a sense, where if the way you've always envisioned the agency is completely kind of getting pushed and redefined?
So don't forget, I mean, the agency model that existed when I entered advertising was one agency. I mean, when Madison started in 1988, we were what was then called a full service agency.
Yes.
Then actually the popular term that came about later on after about a decade was unbundling or specialization. I think we've now taken it to a bit of an extreme, and therefore I think now everyone is trying to break down the walls and offer a integrated service. And in my view, this integrated service is becoming even more relevant to medium-sized to small clients. The way I interpret it is that, large clients want to deal with best-in-class services in each specialized fields because they have the wherewithal to manage a lot more. But those with small budgets, especially in mid-size and smaller size, who are more either small in size or entrepreneurial in their nature, to them having a one offering is very important. So, for example, after having started as one agency in 1988 and being like that till 95, from 95 till about recently, we, split ourselves into 11 different units, or rather many more units, but 11 specialized areas. And today, for the last 1 or 2 years, we are now trying to still maintain the technical expertise of the specialist unit, but we are trying to create a delivery bundle where it's delivered through one voice or through one person or through one spark. So, as far as the client is concerned, he's seeing one medicine, then at the back end, the medicine person may deal with various specialists that service delivered. So to answer your question, yes, it's a completely evolving thing. And I think, just like how, slimline trousers gave way to bell bottoms to parallels and then back came slimline. I think it's a bit like that to me. So I think it's a question of continuously evolving. I don't think it's one big event. I think with every new generation, I think new fads come up and we give them different titles, like how Ashish has from funnel to hourglass, and we'll come back to funnel, but essentially it's the same thing. It's communication, it's relating to people, it's trying to persuade someone and get him or her to reach his wallet. I think all those fundamentals, if we keep in mind, then I think we'll be fine, and agencies will continue to be in demand. I don't agree that the role of the agency is going to go away. We may not be called agencies in the future. I remember Ashish's former big boss, hearing him somewhere, I don't know, in Singapore or somewhere, and it has stayed in my mind.
Who are you referring to for the audience?
I forget his name. It was a Japanese gentleman who was, I think, even then much older to me than what I am now. And he said that one fundamental difference that made a difference to my company is when we began to see ourselves as a company and not an agency. I'm referring to a conversation, 20 years ago in Singapore or something like that. So
Right.
these are different